بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا. اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم الحكيم. اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين. أما بعد. In continuation of our book, Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni, we stopped off, we're still dealing with the conditions of the Salah. We're still dealing with the conditions of the Salah. Last week, before we finished, we spoke briefly about certain things that you can't wear for the Salah. Does anyone remember what they were? Anything? Anybody?
I'm listening.
You're listening?
I'm listening last week.
Okay.
I believe one thing is all pure silk. One.
We didn't actually get into silk yet. I don't think so. We did? I did? Oh. All right. So then listen. We spoke about one of the last things we spoke about was picture taking, etc. and having the pants dragging below the ankles, etc. Right? Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to talk about the things that are muharram. And then we're going to get into more detail, inshallah. Qala Musannaf rahimahullah, the author, he says that it is haram for a person to use any type of garments that has silk in them. Right? Or rather, yahram isti'mal al-mansuj aw mamawahim bidhahab. I don't mean silk, I mean gold. For the men to have gold clothing, etc. Right? It says qabla istihalati. Qabla istihalati. Let's say, for example, a person has gold garments on, but if they have a way of burning the gold off or something, or it changes in that regard, then that becomes permissible. This is not something that is prevalent in our society, so we don't really see that. And then it says wathiyab haririn. Any man wearing clothing that has silk in it, that is all silk, is not permissible in general. وَمَا هُوَ أَكْثَرُ ظُهُورًا عَلَى الذُّكُورِ. That which is the majority. So say, for example, a person has on clothes, right? His clothes is made 80% of silk. This is impermissible. 80%, if it's 100% silk, is impermissible. If it's 80% silk, it is also impermissible, right? If it's 100% silk, is impermissible. If it's 80% silk, is impermissible. La idha stawaya. They say it's not haram if it's equal. For example, it's 50% silk, 50% something else. Does that make sense? Right. Wali daruratin, and it's also permissible. Right now, we're going to mention the instances where it is permissible to have silk on. Now, the first thing, the scholars generally mention the general prohibition, right, of using silk. And then they're going to make exceptions. So the first exception is if it is yastawiya, meaning it's equal, 50% silk, 50% cotton or polyester or something like that, right? That's the first exception. The second exception is wali daruratin, if it's done out of necessity. So a person might ask, is it possible that a person may need to wear silk? It is. And so now they're going to mention some instances. The first one, he says, daruratin aw hikkatin. Hikkatin is like a type of sickness or a skin disease, a skin condition where a person may need to wear silk, right? Or muddledin, or it's whatever type of sickness that would require a person to wear silk. Or harb, if a person is going to war, then it's permissible to wear silk. So somebody might say, well, why? What does that mean? If you're going to war, why is it permissible to wear silk in a war? Does anyone know? Huh? So am I gonna grab you? Nah. They say that the permissibility of wearing silk in a war, because during those times it was a sign of power and strength, and you want to show the enemy that you're not nothing to mess with. So if a person would wear silk during that time, it would be an indicator like, okay, they're not playing, right? And it's a sign of power. right? And then they mentioned some other things as it relates to silk. Like if a person were to have silk on certain aspects of their clothing, it cannot be more than 4 fingers, meaning 4 fingers together, that amount. So for example, if a person has a silk patch, let's say you have a hole in something and they put a silk patch there, as long as it's not more than 4 fingers worth, right? Or they have a collar, as long as it doesn't exceed the 4 fingers worth. Now, some of the things that are hated as it relates to clothing, silk, etc., or rather we're outside of silk, but some of the things that are hated. For example, yukrahu al-mu'asfaru. Al-mu'asfar is a type of yellow fragrance or something that would be worn, but we don't really have that. I don't see it. Or muzaffaran. Having that on likewise is hated for the men. That's the last part as it relates to the clothing, right? And we're going to get into another part here. The next part is staying away from impurities before the salah. Ijtinab an-najasat. The question, if a person, I say you have a son or daughter, right? They're 3 years old, 4 years old. You carry them. You're carrying them in your arms and they urinate and it goes through their pants and it gets on your throat. Can you pray with them? Huh? Yeah, can you pray with that garment on? Or do you have to clean that garment or etc.? Like what's the ruling on that? I got one better. You have like a 2-year-old son, 3-year-old son, they wear diapers, right? They urinate in their diaper. How do you know? It smells. But you're holding them in your arms. Can you pray? Can you pray like this? It don't get on you. It's in their diaper and it's on them. It didn't seep through and you're just carrying a baby. Can you pray like that? Allahu Alam. I'm asking. So we're going to get into those issues, but I just want to know what everybody thinks. Okay? Who hadith? But it's hadith for the baby. So can you pray like that? If you're holding a baby in your arms? Tadun? Time to shuf. The next one, another issue. Let's say, for example, you're in a place, you have a prayer rug, and underneath the prayer rug is impurities, right? And you, at this point, you don't know where, you don't have nowhere else to pray, but you have impurities on you. I mean, there's impurities on the ground. So you take your prayer rug and put it on top of the impurities. Can you pray on that rug?
Nowhere else to pray?
Nowhere else to pray. It might be another place to pray, but the question, is it permissible to pray on top of that? You have somewhere else to pray, but right now, can you pray on top of it? That's the question. Is it haram? Is it permissible? Hello. I got another one. Let's see. If you're praying and while you're in the salah and you notice that you have some urine from something on your throat, can you continue to pray? Is your salah invalid? Like what? I hear crickets. You can't pray? All right. I'm asking the questions. All right, so this is what we're going to talk about right now, inshallah. All right, I got another question. Let's say the reason why I'm giving you, because we're going to cover all of this, inshallah, okay? Let's say, for example, you go to a place, no one knows what direction the Qibla is. It's 3 brothers, right? One brother, he doesn't know what direction the Qibla is, and there's 2 other brothers. One of them like, no, the Qibla's over here. And the other brother's like, no, the Qibla's over there. 2 opposite directions. And they did whatever calculations, they figured it out, and they say, no, it's over here. And the other one says over here. And it's time for the salah. Do they pray Jama'ah or what? What do they do? Is the question clear? You're going to pray in the middle? Nah. One brother is adamant about the Qibla being this way. And the other brother like, no, Ahi, you're wrong. The Qibla is this way. And they're arguing about it. Now, they're not They're not boycotting each other. They didn't go that far. They're not calling each other innovators and all that. They're just saying, no, the Qibla is this way, the Qibla is that way. So they're both in opposite directions. And then he's the third brother. He don't know where to go. He said, man, I don't even know what to do. So what do those first two guys do? And then what does he do? Huh? I'm asking. So you're the only one. They should pray whatever. So basically, it's time for Dhuhr. One brother's going to pray this way. It's like, man, Aki, you on your own. And the other one's going to pray that way. Is that permissible? It's not permissible? It's haram. They together. That's his man. They friends. They traveled. All three of them traveled together. Listen. All three of the brothers traveled together. One brother says, no, the Qibla is this way. He did his research and he figured out the Qibla is that way. Another one says, no, Akhi, I was here before. It's that way. So they're arguing. Does one of them have to give in and follow the other one? If they strong, both of them are strong in their positions. What do you do? First of all, is this realistic? It is. What do you do? He could be an Amir, but he's like, no, Amir, I'm telling you the Qibla is this way. He's like, no, it's that way. He might be the leader of the group, but in his mind, this is my deen. I'm praying this. I'm praying towards the Qibla. He looking at you like you're not praying towards the Qibla. That's another issue. One last issue we're going to talk about, and then we're going to get into the text, right? When we pray, we're supposed to face what? Face what? The Qibla. What happens if you're off a little bit? Like, for example, I've seen a couple of brothers come in here and pray, and they'll like move to the side, like not directly the way they'll move to the slant. Like, is that okay? Or if this place is off slightly, is that okay? Is that even permissible? It is. You can deviate from the direction of the Qibla. I didn't give you anything. No, hold. Wait, hold, Aki. Hold up. Slow down. Hold up. Don't listen. I'm not done yet. Listen. Just calm down, brother. We ain't get there yet. Just calm down. Inshallah, we're gonna get there. I just want to know what you thought about it. Hold that. We're gonna come back to that. I guarantee, inshallah, we're gonna touch that before the class is over. All right. All right. MashaAllah. All right, so here we go. So first we're gonna go back to the other issues. وَمِنْهَا اجْتِنَابُ النَّجَاسَاتِ. So the first thing is, when we're getting ready to pray, we need to stay away from what? Impurities, right? فَمَنْ حَمَلَ نَجَاسَةً لَا يُعْفَى عَنْهَا. If a person is carrying any form of impurities, then this is not excused in the Salah. Also, I wanted to add, we're going to back up a little bit here. Some of the types of clothing, we'll get back to the clothing real quick, then we'll come back to this. It says, Yukra Ahmad al-Khalis. If a person wears red, this is hated. For a man to wear all red, just hard, it says khalis, nothing mixed with it, just straight red, like bright red, is hated. Wal mashi bi na'la wahida, and walking around in one shoe is also hated in Islam. Wa kuna thiyabahu fawqa nisfa saqihi. And if a person has a thobe, because at one point in time in this city, people will wear thobes. The sunnah is what for a thobe? It should be where? Above, that's it? Not nisfu saq. A sunnah, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, is that the thobe should be in the middle of the leg. Does that make sense? It is hated. You ever see a brother wear a real short thobe, look like it would come like right below his knees? This is considered hated. This is hated in al-Islam. Right? Oh, tahta ka'bihi bila haja. If a person has a garment or a thobe below his ankles and it's not out of necessity, then it's just also hated. طيب. Also, يقرأ لبس الثوب الذي يصف بشرة للرجل والمرأة. Anything that describes the body or whatever, any type of clothing like this, then it is also hated. وثوب الشهرة. Wearing a famous type of clothes. وهو يشتهر أو يشتهر عند الناس ويشار إليه بالأصابع. So the type of clothes that is famous with the people is the type of clothing that might draw attention and stuff like that. In general, is hated. In general, is hated. Now back to the back to carrying something that has nedges. So say for example, you were traveling, you're in your car, you had to go to the bathroom, and you couldn't get out, you stuck in traffic, but you got an empty water bottle. So you go to the bathroom in a bottle, put the top on it, you put it in your pocket, you go to the masjid, you make wudu, and you pray. Can you pray with that in your pocket? Huh? Why are you laughing? I'm saying it's a serious question. Can you pray with it in your pocket, the urine in your pocket? La. Why? It says, فَمَنْ حَمَلَ نَجَاسَةً, whoever carries impurities, فَلَا يُعْفَى عَنْهُ, then you cannot, meaning this is not pardoned. You can't, it's not excused. Okay? And this goes to the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, تَنَزَّهُ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ فَإِنَّ عَامَةَ عَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ مِنْهُ. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, purify yourself from urine. For indeed, the general punishment of most of the people in the grave is from this. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Mudathir, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَاهِرْ وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَاهِرْ, meaning purify your garments. So a person might say, well, the urine's in my pocket. It's not on my clothes, but it's in your possession. And when you move, it's with you. It's attached to you. Right? Right. The next part. It says, أَوْ لَاقَاهَا بِثَوْبِهِ. So let's say, for example, a person gets urine on their thobe. أَوْ بَدَنِهِ لَمْ تَصِحْ صَلَاتُهُ. Or let's say, for example, a person may, a child or whatever may urine on your hand or your arm. And you're like, dang, you don't wash it off. You leave it there. This will what? Invalidate your salah. It doesn't mean, though, if urine gets on you that you have to make wudu. Some people believe that if some type of impurity touches you, that you have to make wudu. And this is not the case. You don't have to make wudu. Rather, you just wash it off. طيب. وإن طين أرضا نجسة أو فرشها طاهرا كره. So let's say, for example, remember when we mentioned the issue, if you go into an area and there's impurities on the ground and you have to pray, but you got your prayer rug with you. They say it's hated to put down a prayer garment over something that's impure. Not haram, but what? Hated. Meaning it's permissible to do if you have to, but it's not something that you is recommended unless you have to. طيب. وإن كانت بظرف مصلى متصل صحت. So let's say, for example, you got a prayer rug, right? Use your prayer rug, but at the tip of your prayer rug on the right side or something, it's like a little bit of urine there. Maybe your son ran around and your baby ran around, urinated on the top part of your prayer rug. Can you pray with that? Can you pray on it? Who says no? طيب. So it says, وَإِن كَانَتْ بِطَرَفَ الْمُصَلَّى. It said, if there is a part of the thing you're praying on, مُتَّصِل, is connected to your prayer garment, sahat. Your salah is correct. In lam yajurrahu bimashyihi. As long as when you move, that garment, it doesn't move with you. Meaning it's detached from you. So let's explain it. Let's say you had a prayer garment or something. You didn't realize some urine at the top, but you need to pray. If you put your head, you're going to get, and you're like, damn, I'm going to stay away from that section, but you pray. In this case, they say sahat. It's permissible as long as that prayer garment is not attached to you. Meaning when you move, it moves with you. Does it make sense? Why did they say as long as it's not attached to you? The reason why they say that is because if you look at the first part, you said that you cannot carry any impurities with you. So that means if you're moving around, it's attached to you. That means you're what? You're carrying it, but you're not. It's separated. Does that make sense? Like, all right. Now here's the situation. What happens is if after the salat, say you pray salat al-dhuhr, right? You leave the masjid, you go on about your way, you go back to work, whatever you're doing, then you look like, dang, you see some urine on your throat. Then you're going to ask yourself, was this urine here when I prayed? What do you do? What would you do?
You only make it up if you know for certainty, but if you're not certain, then you don't make it up.
Mumkin. Anybody else? What happened, Sheikh? What do you do? People ask all these types of questions all the time. What do you do? We agree that the hadith is removed with water. The question now is he already prayed and then he noticed a couple hours later he had urine or something on his stove. What do you do? So what does he do? Do you have to pray the salat again? He can. I mean, he can do a lot of things. Does he have to? Is it required? Come on, Mashai.
I think so.
You think it's required? You think he has to pray again? Okay. Anybody else? You think what he said?
No, he was saying the attention that the attention. I think what he was saying.
All right. So listen. The author, rahimahullah, he said, وَمَنْ رَأَى عَلَيْهِ نَجَاسَةً بَعْدَ صَلَاتِهِ. So after a person prayed and he saw that he had some najasa, some impurities on him, وَجَهِلَ قَوْنُهَا فِيهَا لَمْ يُعِدْهَا. And he didn't know he had those impurities on him, meaning he doesn't believe that it'll happen then. He might have believed that it just happened. Well, I'm adding to it because there's a lot of scenarios, right? So in the event, he says, Fiha falem yu'id. He doesn't have to make the salat up. So let's say he prays and he notices later on, he's like, man, it could, but he doesn't believe that it could have came. It's possible it could have came from somewhere else after the salat. So then he doesn't have to make the salat up, right? But then there's another case. وَإِنْ عَلِمَ أَنَّهَا كَانَتْ فِيهَا لَكِنْ جَهِلَ أَوْ نَسِيهَا أَعَادَ. If he notices later, he's like, I know for sure this urine had to be on me when I was praying because I didn't go nowhere. And this, right? But he forgot while he was praying. What does he have to do now? Pray it over. Pray the salah over. Some of the ulama of the Hanabila, they say, no, he doesn't have to pray it over. Some. Qawla thani, a second. But, I mean, I think it's safer to pray it over. But the reason why I'm mentioning the other position is because when the Prophet ﷺ was praying, the angel Jibreel told him he had some najasa on his shoe. And he took his shoe off while he was praying and he continued his salat. He didn't stop his salat and start all over. The argument that some people may say that could just be for the Prophet ﷺ, etc. But in general, that's the other position. Yes.
So, what would a person do if they did have a bottle of urine in their pocket because they was in the car? Would they be able to take it out, sit the bottle on the ground, and keep praying?
Yeah. Yes, he could separate the urine from his body. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like separate yourself from it. Don't have it in your pocket. All right. Make sure your hands are clean and all that. And, you know what I'm saying? And if you put it in your pocket, you might want to make sure your pocket is clean too.
So, like in the midst of the salat, you should really like a calm check. All right, everything before I move it. Because if you feel something wet, it's like you gotta assume that those things are right.
I mean, I don't know how many people put urine in their pocket. No, but I'm just saying, like, white with a. I just made that as an example. That's, you're saying, so if a person did do that, if a person did take a bottle of urine and put it in his pocket, and then his pocket is what? So what do you think he should do?
You automatically gotta assume that it's the urine. That's
Exactly. So what should he do?
you can't stop praying. Because it's on you. It's on you. Then it's like
So what do you think he should do?
you gotta stop praying. You gotta go
So once he stopped praying, then what?
wipe it off.
Well, tissue?
No, go get some water.
Good.
'Cause this all like,
So what about his pocket?
but no, you gotta go home.
And do what?
You gotta change your clothes.
Couldn't he just wash it?
No, I say for the soap with clothes. He can.
You talking about just a bottle?
No, like you got urine.
That is my question though. If your pocket wet with urine, right? No, this is a good question. If your pocket is you now question, can you just use regular water, or do you have to use water and soap?
You can use water.
The water, I'm about to say water.
Yeah, you can use water. You can use, if you can't go home, you can actually use water and wash it out.
That's fine.
Yes. Soap is not a requirement. Yes.
Somebody got a question.
Oh, we didn't even finish that.
It's about the urine.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
They got a question saying if a person have, like a urine bag.
That's different. If a person has a colostomy bag, right? If a person has that, for every salat, they have to make wudu. This is called, in Arabic, it's called silsilatul bawl, meaning continuous urination, right? In a case like that, a person has to make wudu for every salat. For every salat. That's it. All right? That's a good question. طيب. So then, let's go back to this. It says, وَإِنْ عَلِمَ أَنَّهَا كَانَتْ فِيهَا, meaning if they know that the urine or the impurity was with them. لَكِنْ جَهِلَهَا أَوْ نَسِيَهَا أَعَادٍ, but they didn't know about it or they forgot about it, then they have to do it again. It says, وَمَنْ جَبُرَ عَظْمَةُ بِنَجَسٍ. So let's say, for example, a person has a cast on their arm, right? And what they use to put a cast on is something that's najis, something that's impure. Whatever, however way they use. Maybe they use something that's najis and they use it to wrap your arm up, right? It says, لَمْ يَجِبْ قَلْعَهُ مَا ضَرَرٍ. If it's hard for you to remove it, then you don't have to. If it's easy for you to remove and it doesn't harm you, then it's okay to remove it, right? وَمَا سَقَطَ مِنْهُ مِنْ عَضْوٍ. So now they're going to talk about people, right? If a person's tooth falls out, is that tooth considered najis? No. If a person, because the ulama, they mention all of these different categories. It says, مَنْ سَقَطَ مِنْهُ مِنْ عُضْوٍ أَوْ سِنٍّ فَطَاهِرٍ. If a person has a limb or something fall off of their body, for whatever the case is, that limb or that tooth, etc., is considered pure. It's not considered najis. Right? So now we're going to talk about some of the places where it's impermissible to pray. The first one, la tasit. And this is obviously in Islam, if it's necessity, then there's always exceptions to the rule out of necessity. Is that clear? Is it permissible to pray sitting down if you have the ability to stand up? Under no circumstances? No salat? Yes, what? You can pray standing up? No, Sheikh. I said pray sitting down if you have the ability to stand up. Huh? I'm just saying any prayer. No? The Sunnah Prayer? You can pray. Are you asking or telling me? You don't know? So it's obligatory for the obligatory prayer. But what about for the Sunnah prayers? You got to stand.
The key word you say if you got the ability.
If you have the ability to stand, then it's a Sunnah prayer. Can you pray sitting down? All right. So we're going to cover that too, inshallah. Right now, we're going to talk about the places that you can't pray. وَلَا تَصِحُّ الصَّلَاةُ فِي مَقْبَرَةٍ. It's not permissible to pray the salat in a grave. It says, bila udhr. Meaning, it's not permissible to pray in the grave if you don't have an excuse. Meaning, unless it's a necessity, you can't pray in the grave. You can't choose that as a location to go pray. Does that make sense? Why do you think that is? Because a person could fall into shirk. You can go to these places and you start praying to your dead loved ones and say, asking them to do something for you that they can't do. This is shirk. Another place you can't pray is a hush. A hush is like a toilet area. Not necessarily back, because a bathroom, because they specify a bathroom could be wherever you use the bathroom at, you can't pray there. I'll just say that. The next one is hammam. A hammam is like a shower, a place where you clean yourself at, right? The other one is a'tan al-ibl. You can't pray where the places where the camels are. You also can't pray in a place that is stolen, like you stole a house. You said, "Dad, let me just run in here and pray." You stole somebody's house or something like that, right? Wa astihatiha, and you can't play on a rooftop of none of those places that were just mentioned. Wa tasihhu ilayha. However, if you're going to pray towards those places, then that's fine, but you can't pray in those places or on the roofs of those places. Does that make sense? Right. Wala tasihhu faridatun fil Kaaba. All right. If you are given the opportunity to go inside of the Kaaba that's in Masjid al-Haram, you cannot pray an obligatory prayer inside of the Kaaba. You can pray a Sunnah prayer. It says, La tasih faridatun fil Kaaba, wala fawqaha. And you also cannot pray on top of the Kaaba. A person may say, well, where's all this coming from? The ulama, they mention all these various issues, these many issues, so that a person can understand what is permissible versus what's not. During that time, a person probably couldn't visualize a person praying on top of the Kaaba. But now it's possible, right? So then it says, what tasihhu an-nafila bistiqbal shakhis minha. They say that you can pray a Sunnah prayer as long as you have a stick or something in front of you, inside of it, etc. Hello, Alam. This is the madhab of Imam Ahmed as it relates to that. Any questions about that? All right. Now we're going to get into an interesting issue here. Where do we stop at? Okay. So it says, وَمِنْهَا إِسْتِقْبَالُ Qibla. So facing the Qibla is also from what? From the conditions of the Salah. Facing the Qibla is also from the conditions of the Salah. Right? Right. It says, فَلَا تَصِحُّ بِدُونِهِ إِلَّا لِعَاجِزٍ وَمُتَنَفِّلٍ. If a person doesn't pray towards the Qibla, their Salah is not accepted. So let's go back to the argument. Both of these brothers is like, one brother says the Qibla is here and the other one says the Qibla is over there. What do you think they do? They delay it. What do they do? This is a real issue. Okay. But what if one says the best that I know is over here and the other brother says the best that I know is over there? So they're going to pray separate? They don't got to pray congregation, they just pray separate?
If you feel like what you're doing is wrong, then it's not going to sit right, so there's no point.
What's the question?
The question is this, Sheikh. I like his answer though. The question is this. 3 brothers, they all traveling. 2 brothers say, one brother says the Qibla is this way. The other brother says, no, the Qibla is that way. The third brother, he doesn't know left or right. The one that says the Qibla is this way, he's strong about his position and he's going to stick to that. The other brother that says that way, he's strong about his position, he's going to stick to that. What do they do? Not you, those brothers. Well, what would you do?
I would go by where the sun rose and where it set.
Shake. They're all saying the same thing. One of them says it's this way, and the other one says it's that way. It's cloudy outside. You traveling. What do you do? Sheikh, I just said you're traveling. You're traveling, meaning you're not in your.
Like the day before when I was traveling, I'm in the same spot like that on Mecca, right? Outside and ride this way. I'm in the same place. I'm still traveling, but I'm in the same place. So if I can't see it clearly, and I pray that way. I'm saying that's what I would pray.
It seems to me as though he gonna do brother.
Anybody else? Somebody else want to chime in? You gonna follow the imam? It's three. Sheikh, it's 3 men. Sheikh, listen. Sheikh, listen. It's 3 men. You're one of the men now. All right. Listen. You established that he's the imam. It's you, and you. You're all traveling. He's like, the Qibla's that way. You, in your mind, like, no, I think it's this way. You did your little calculations. Your phone set is over here, and his phone set is over there. What are you going to do? You going to follow him? I mean, what if you got the latest? Listen. Everyone has the latest phones. Oh, real quick. I just want to hear what he's going to say.
In that situation, I will follow. If I'm saying the word right, I'm there, right? The person.
But you don't believe him, though.
Well, I mean, he's supposed to be the authority of the.
See, that's the problem. That right there, that's a problem with our city. If you think you're gonna follow him, even though you know he's wrong, you don't believe he's right. You don't believe he's right. And in your heart of hearts, listen. In your heart of hearts, you believe he's wrong. Are you sure about that?
Yeah, because I didn't know.
Go ahead, Sheikh. We're gonna come back to. I just want to see how everybody think. That's all. Go ahead. So I'm asking you, if you firmly believe that it's the Qibla's that way, and he firmly believes it's that way, are you going to say, you know what? I'm going to worship Allah in a direction that I don't believe is correct? So if each one says they're going to, so that means when it's time for the Salah, they're both going to pray in opposite directions? Is that what they're going to do? All right, cool. I can respect that. He's going to pray in that direction. You're going to pray in that direction. What are you going to do? Because you don't know either way. What are you going to do? It can be one of two ways, either this way or that way. Which way are you going to pray? No, but at least the difference between them two and you is that they tried to do some type of calculation to figure it out. You did nothing. So now it's upon you to follow one of them. Who are you going to follow? And I'm mentioning this because this is a microcosm of a bigger issue. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. Who are you going to follow? You're going to evaluate character. What else you going to evaluate? Which one you think has more deen? What? All right, but that's how you're going to look at both of them. Okay. Now pay attention, because when we talk about this issue, this is going to lead to a bigger issue, right? So hold on to that, because we're going to come back to it. It says, وَلَا تَصِحْ بِدُونِهِ إِلَّا لِعَاجِزٍ وَمُتَنَفِّلٍ. If a person can't face the Qibla for whatever reason, let's say, for example, they're in a wheelchair, they're in a hospital bed, the Qibla is that way, no one's to move, then they got to pray ala hasab hal, right? Or if a person is praying a Sunnah prayer, you're not required to face the Qibla to pray. This is due to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He was riding on his riding beast, and he prayed sitting down, not facing the Qibla. Yeah. Right. And it says, متنفل راكب سائرا في السفر ويلزم افتتاح الصلاة إليها. If a person, the only obligation here is that when you're traveling or moving like that and you're in a car, you have to face the Qibla to say Allahu Akbar, but then you can pray not facing the Qibla if you're in another direction and traveling. If you are walking, then you are required to turn and face the Qibla when you stand in ruku', etc., and sujood, etc., if you're walking. If you're traveling in a vehicle and you want to pray a Sunnah prayer, If the Qibla is that way and you're traveling this way, you can face Allahu Akbar and continue praying this way. Is that clear? Tight. This is for a Sunnah prayer, not an obligatory prayer. And let's go back to people sitting in their cars. You cannot sit in your car to pray an obligatory prayer unless you are afraid for your life or something like that, out of necessity. This means, brothers, sisters, this means that when you leave out the house, you need to know what time the Salah comes in. This is when it comes to our prayer, we have to be serious. If you're a sister, for example, right, and you're leaving out the house, you need to look at the time. Okay, what time is the Salah going to come in, and where am I going to be so I can pray? If your mindset is not like that, you're setting yourself up for failure. A man will just pray anywhere. If a man's praying, he's going to, I'll pray in a parking lot, pray behind a park bench. It don't matter. Sisters, they may be a little more apprehensive to pull over on the side of the road and pray. So one of the places you could pray is go to a department store and go in the fitting room. You laughing? I'm dead serious. Go right in the fitting room. And listen, I'm Muslim. I need to pray. Like, it's like, open that door. Right? But in general, when you leave out the house, wherever you go, you need to be mindful of what time the Salah comes in and where you're going to be. That's how important it is. Some people, if you don't think like that, I guarantee you it's something that's important in your life that you're always thinking about. If your Salah is not from those most important things in your life that you're thinking about, there's a problem. There's no way you can be out in the house shopping in the mall. Oh, I'll just pray when I get home. If you intentionally, listen to this. If you're a sister and you're out in the mall shopping and you miss Asr, you miss Maghrib, you say, I'm going to just pray when I get home, and you left them off intentionally, some ulama will say this is kufr. This is disbelief in Allah. Why is that disbelief? Why do some consider that disbelief in Allah? You left off the Salat muta'ammid. You intentionally left it off because you chose to do something more important to you. It was more important for you to go to the mall and shop than to give Allah his rights. Brothers, you're watching the football game. Man, I gotta watch this last quarter. Bloop, you just missed Maghrib. Damn, that's cool. I'll make it up when the game over. Same thing. Same thing. We chose, as men, you chose to put the Salah in the back seat so that you can watch the game and get some giggles. And then you pray later. Same thing. It's intentional. It's not like you forgot. You was lazy, right? But some ulama, do you want to put yourself in a category where your deen, your Islam is even questioned? Do you want to put yourself in a category where some Muslims, if you die, some Muslims might say, man, I don't know if I'm going to pray over him, man. I remember, man, the Salat came in one day, man, he just sat through the whole John. He didn't even pray. We all stood up and prayed like, I'm cool. I'm going to pray later. And in your mind, like, pray later. Dude, you only got another 30 minutes. Salat, it's going to be out. You talking to a man, so you know his menses ain't on. Men don't get menses. You know he's not a traveler because you live up the street. Like, what type of time you on? Like, what's up? This is a problem. This is a problem. I don't know how we got on that, but it's important. When it comes to the Salat, people think that they can pray obligatory prayers in their cars. You cannot. You cannot unless it's a necessity. Sisters, when you leave the home, know where you're going to be when the Salah comes in. Don't play around. Now, just imagine a sister, right? She's at the mall shopping. Salat al-Dhuhr comes in, she misses it. Asr comes in, she misses it. Maghrib comes in, she misses it. So I'm just pray when I get home. She gets in her car, get in an accident, and dies. Listen, you missed Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib. What excuse you going to say to Allah? What are you going to say? The line was long in the store. I tried to hurry up and get out, but I couldn't. a brother, the football game's on. You watching the game, dang man, you might even go to the game. Muslims go to football games. So, like, if you go to an Eagles game, you might be there. Asr comes in. You don't pray Asr. I'm gonna just wait till the game over, man. Man, it's too many people here. I don't want them to see me praying. You should have thought about that before you went there, brother. So now Allah gotta wait for you to get out the game? No, you better figure that out. It's not a game. This is not, and the thing about it, it's not a game because when it's time to put ourselves in the ground, it's no games then. It's all tears. It's all real then. Anyway, the next part, it says, وَفَرْضُ مَنْ قَرْبَ مِنَ الْقِبْلَةِ إِصَابَةَ عَيْنِهَا. So now we're going to talk about facing the Qibla. If we're in Mecca, right? If we're in Mecca, Masjid al-Haram, right? It is obligatory for you to face the Qibla. Like your eyes have to be right on, smack on the Qibla, the Kaaba. All right? Are we clear about that? Right. وَمَا بَعُدَ جِهَتِهَا فَإِنْ أَخْبَرَهُ ثِقَةٌ بِيَقِينٍ. وَمَنْ بَعُدَ جِهَتُهَا. Whoever is far away, like us, for example, it is not obligatory for you to hit the Kaaba smack on. Rather, the general vicinity is enough. The general vicinity is enough. So, for example, if the Qibla spot on is this way and you deviate slightly to the right, slightly to the left, labats. And this is not my statement. You can find many of the scholars of the past talk about it specifically here. It says, فَلَا يَدُرُّ التَّيَامُمْ وَلَا تَيَسُّرْ يَسِّرَانِ عُرْفًا. He said it doesn't harm if you're slightly off to the right or slightly off to the left. That which is understanding the customs of the people. Then it's not off. إِلَّا مَنْ كَانَ بِمَسْجِدِ النَّبِي صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Except for the one who is in the masjid of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in Medina, لأن قبلته متيقنه, because the Qibla, for certain where the Qibla is, because the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam prayed there. Yes.
So before we had the apps, how did the older people know?
Before we had the apps, how did the older people know what? Before we had apps.
Like whoever was alive in like the 70s and the 80s.
He said, like for y'all.
How did y'all know where to face the prayer before technology?
So they should pray in a certain direction, northeast, or etc. They would just look at a compass or something like that. How old are you?
Did you go to geography in school and all that? Did you help in school?
He said y'all have maps and stuff. MashaAllah. It says, فَإِنْ أَخْبَرَهُ ثِقَةً بِيَقِينٍ. So another way to learn the Qibla is if a trustworthy person gives you the direction of the Qibla. أو وجد محاريب إسلامية عمل بها. Or if you go into a place and they have a mihrab. You ever go to a masjid, they have like a little dug-in spot? That's considered a mihrab. If wherever that place is, that's usually obviously the direction of the Qibla. وَيُسْتَدَلُّ عَلَيْهَا بِالسَّفْرِ بِالْقُطْبِ. So if a person is traveling, they will look to the stars, the sun, the moon, and where it sets, etc. Now here's the issue that we talked about. It says, وَإِنِ اجْتَهَدَ مُجْتَهِدَانِ فَاخْتَلَفَ فِي جِهَةٍ لَمْ يَتْبَعْ أَحَدُهُمَا الْآخَرَ. If two brothers, you two, you put in your effort, you try to find what direction the Qibla is in. He says it's over there, you say it's over there. All right? It is impermissible now for you to follow him and for you to follow him. It's impermissible for you to follow him or you to follow him. They can't follow each other. Does it mean they got to refute each other? No. It's just, I believe is this way and you believe it's that way. Based on my understanding and tools I have, I say it's here. Based on his understanding and the tools that he has, he says it's over there. There's not a reason for brothers to fight and argue and warn against. He just got to do it what he believes is correct. And has to do what he believes is correct. It's impermissible for him to follow him, and it's impermissible for you to follow him. Is that clear? Yes. Well, hold on. We're going to get to the third guy. We're going to get to the third guy now. So it says, وَيَتْبَعَ الْمُقَلِّدْ أَوْثَقَهُمَا عِنْدَهُ. And so the muqallid, which would be our brother here, he's going to follow the most trustworthy person from among them. He's going to follow the most trustworthy person among them to him. Does that make sense? So he said, if he looks at him and say, man, I like his deen now, like his mashallah, like I want to be like him, he's going to follow him. And if he says, I like him, I like his deen better, then he's going to follow him. In that case, that's permissible for him. Don't get mad, be like, yo, you just follow him. I'm telling you where. Nah, it's not for you to do that, right? Because in this case, he is a what? A muqallid. He's a follower. He doesn't know. He doesn't have the tools to look and figure out what direction the Qibla is in. Right. Another issue. وَمَنْ صَلَّ بِغَيْرِ اجْتِهَادٍ وَلَا تَقْلِيدٍ قَضَى. If a person prays, I say the brother here says, man, I'm not listening to either one of you. I'm praying this direction. So a person might ask him, why are you praying that? I don't know. It's the opposite of them two. If he prays in that direction, he must make his salah up again. He must pray a salah. Why? Because you have to be certain to the best of your ability, the direction of Qibla. The direction of the Qibla. وَإِنْ وَجَدَ مَنْ يُقَلِّدُهُ. He has to pray over again, especially if he finds someone that he can follow. وَيَجْتَهِدُ الْعَارِفُ بِأَدِلَّةِ الْقِبْلَةِ لِكُلِّ صَلَاةٍ يُصَلِّي بِالثَّانِي. So let's say, for example, it's Dhuhr. You're still traveling. He says the Qibla is this way. And then as Asr comes, like, damn, I made a mistake. It's really over this way. But he's calculating. Does he have to go back and pray the Salah over again? Like Dhuhr?
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. No. There's a qaida in al-Islam. It says, al-ijtihad la yanqutu al-ijtihad. Al-ijtihad, it means when you strive Islamically to come up with a verdict, and then you change your mind and say, no, it's this verdict. This one doesn't negate that one, more or less. Al-ijtihad la yanqutu al-ijtihad, meaning your ijtihad doesn't invalidate your first one that is 100% wrong. Does that make sense? But this is only for the people that are qualified to do that. It's only for the people that are qualified. Al-ijtihad la yanqudu al-ijtihad. Right. وَيَقْضِي مَا صَلَّى بِالْأَوَّلِ وَمِنْهَا. All right. So with that, we're going to stop with that, inshallah. And then we're going to talk about how that is a microcosm of a bigger issue. We live in a place where a lot of people follow behind other people, right? A lot of people follow behind other people. A lot of times people may not have the tools to analyze issues and determine whether or not this is correct Islamically or it's incorrect Islamically. So what happens is a person will follow someone, and when you follow someone, the person you're following is making their own judgment and you're following them. And then if you follow somebody, sometimes you look at the person that doesn't take it your way and you minimize their Islam. You make yourself a better Muslim than them. This is dangerous. It's dangerous because right now we are putting ourselves in positions that Allah didn't put us in. Allah didn't put you in position to judge other Muslims in that regard. That's not what you're here for. While you're here on this earth, is to figure out a way that what's going to allow you to get closer to Allah before you die. That's it. Allah says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. The only reason why we were created is to worship Allah. Bas. That's it. You're not here because you're whoever you are and your word must reign supreme over everyone else's. No. You're not here to look up the faults of other Muslims. No, you're here to perfect your worship and prepare yourself to meet Allah. One of the things we mentioned the other day in Jummah was that a person will be dead a lot longer. A person will be dead in the grave a lot longer than you will ever live on this earth. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala he died in the year 36 Hijri. Right now, what year are we in? 14 what? 1443. That's over what? How many years ago? 1400 years. That means he's been in the ground for how long? 1400 years. Al-Akhirah, meaning once you leave the grave and go to Al-Akhirah, because the life in the grave is called what? Al-Barzakh. It's the life of the grave. He's been in the life of the grave, for example, for how long? 1400 years. The life in the Akhirah is longer than that. It's forever. How much time do we have here? A small amount of time. A small amount of time. And sometimes the shaitan makes it seem like we're going to be here forever. But it's signs every day. Anybody here have gray hair in their beard? Do you remember when you didn't? That's my point. The time is coming. Allah gives us signs every day. And if we want to choose to waste our time focusing on other people and their mistakes and their errors and the things they didn't do right, et cetera, and forget about yourself, you put yourself in trouble. You're going to put yourself in a bad situation. At any event, we're going to stop with that. Any questions, inshallah?
I have a question about sitting down praying in the car thing regarding safety. So is there a difference between you seeing like a potential, like a threat, or you think it might be a potential threat?
Sure. If you are fearing for your safety, that's one thing. Do you think means you think you're concerned about your safety?
I mean, so what if you?
But if you're not concerned,
I'm gonna give you an example. Like you in the mall or something like that, and you don't see nothing, out of the ordinary. But you think, okay, if I pray right here in this spot, somebody might come by and pour some juice on me or something like that. Something like that. Like you don't see a threat.
So why don't you just go in the dressing room?
I was using that as an example. The dressing room closed.
Then if you're in the mall, they got a lot of stores with dressing rooms, right?
I'm just using the mall as an example, but I'm just saying, if you might think that somebody might do something that
then you don't pray there if you think somebody's going to do something, right? Obviously, you want to pray in a place that you feel safe, right? Also, you got to think, you left out the house, you knew what time it was. You could have prayed before you left. One of the things about the Salah too is that if we're always thinking about the Salah, it gives us boundaries, right? Like, dang, I want to go to Salah. I know I'm only going to be here for an hour because the Salah coming. I'm not trying to be stuck in here, right? All those things got to process in your mind when you're talking, when you're thinking, and when you make your moves. If you're thinking about wherever you go, I'm about to go such, like, dad, what time is it? What time I'm going to get there? The Salah coming around this time? All right, I'm going to be good because the masjid right over there I can pray at, right? You got to think like that. If you don't think like that, you're going to jam yourself up. And then you're going to fall into the issue like, damn, I'm going to be drawn out here praying in front of everybody in the street. Well, you can either pray or not pray. The choice is yours. But if you don't pray, just pray that the Lord don't take your soul leaving off the Salah. That's a gamble. That's a gamble. And I'm telling you, we leave off the Salah. People leave off the Salah because it's a weakness in your Iman, a weakness in our Iman. Our faith is not where it should be. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Say, for instance, like it's snow outside, the stock ready to go out. Is it all right for them to put in the car?
If it's out of necessity, then you can pray in the car out of necessity. All right. You know what's like. I'll give you an example. You can make tayammum, right? if you have water. But the origin of tayammum is that if you don't have water, then you make tayammum, right? If there's a problem, let's say, for example, there's a problem. It's freezing cold outside. You know, if you put water on, you might get sick. In this case, you what? You make tayammum, even though the water's there. Why? Because you fear for your safety. You fear for your health. Yes.
I remember you made an example while you told the story about that when it was
When I made Hajj?
yeah,
Yeah.
and the brother did that, and you was like, I should have did that.
Yeah. So I made Hajj. We made Hajj in I think it was 2006 or 7. And one of the brothers, he made at the time we're just learning this stuff, right? He was like, man, it's cold, man. I'm making tayammum. I'm like, man, you out of pocket. The sunnah is, you better make this wudu. And I'm making wudu and I'm freezing. And then I found out later, like, you know, what you should have did was make tayammum like him, because that was a smart thing to do. So yeah, it happens. You learn. You don't know everything. Any other questions? Can you pray the Salah early? What does that mean? Early within the time or early before the time? If they mean pray the Salah early, meaning Salatul Dhuhr Mathalan, for example, comes in, you pray it as soon as it comes in, then let bets. But you can't pray the Salah before the time comes in. You cannot pray the Salah before the time comes in. This is impossible. You can't do that. Any other questions? Or you got some more questions online? Yes. Still a house, man. You know how I'm Philly. This is Philly. People steal houses here. Still a building. You can't pray in if you stole it. Are you talking about something else? Listen, Akhi. Listen, Akhi. I'm just saying. Yes.
You was talking about like praying on the grave. Any like not permissible to leave the prayer rug on the grave site?
I don't know if it's not permissible, but that's not something you should do. There's no whistle. So people leaving graves, and there's a whole bunch of stuff now at the grave sites. I don't know where people got this from. They leave a prayer rug on a grave site for what? What is that? What does that mean? It's not from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. It's not from the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for you to leave a prayer rug at a site. What else do they leave there? What else you find people? Huh? Flowers, balloons, for what? Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he put a flower in a grave for what? What was the reason? Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he placed a flower on someone's grave for a reason. The reason was so that person, he said, as long as this flower is alive, this person won't be punished in their graves. Does that make sense? So then the Prophet ﷺ, he put that flower there for a reason. You don't know if somebody's being punished in the grave. Allah didn't give any of us knowledge of the unseen. So therefore, this putting prayer rugs, a lot of the graves of the Muslims look terrible. Look terrible. People mess them. It just looks horrible. This is not the way the graves of the Muslims are supposed to look. There are brothers getting high Muslims getting high at the cemetery. May Allah help us. Any other questions?
Not a question, but about the property. I know somebody, she took her dad's property, like his crib, she took it out of his name, put it in her name. So that's like a form of stolen property. Like if you know somebody with a deed.
Was her dad living?
Yeah. She burned it.
Any other questions, Sheikh? Go ahead.
Somebody saying that they was traveling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that down went on. But they traveled to another place, and then the downs are different, basically.
If a person is traveling,
The down on their phone went off on the city of Philadelphia.
mm-hmm.
The down went off.
Mhm.
Traveling somewhere with a town different. Another guy went on.
So
The time different.
let me make sure I understand. Let's say, are they traveling by plane? Are they traveling by car? All right, so let's assume that they're traveling by plane. They leave Philly. The adhan for Dhuhr is in. They don't pray Dhuhr. They get on the plane. They travel to California and they adhan there. First of all, they are obligated to pray the Salah of the people of the hometown that you left when the adhan was in. Does that make sense? I remember one time we were traveling to Medina with one of the scholars, right? So it was 3 of us. So we're in the car, and before we left Mecca, we heard the adhan. So I'm like, bet we don't have to stay. We can just, in my mind, because we were one of the mashayikh, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, we can combine and shorten while we're on the road. So as we're driving, we're like an hour outside of Mecca. It was time to pray. So I'm thinking we're only going to pray 2 raka'at for Salat al-Dhuhr. The sheikh says, no, we got to yatim salat. So I'm like, well, why? He said, because when we left, we heard the adhan of Mecca. That means that the salat came in, and the salat came in, and it was obligatory for us to pray the 4 raka'at while we were there. So then you still have to pray that. Yes.
What if somebody work outside the city that they live in? Would they pray? They pray regular?
Are they a traveler?
They don't count as traveler.
Well, how far out this out? If a person works outside of the city, what do you mean work? Like say in Jersey, and your Jersey's right over the bridge. It depends on where you're talking about in Jersey. So what are you asking?
If a person works outside of their city.
Where? You can be in Chester. Chester's 20 minutes from here.
Oh, all right. So
It depends on the distance. All right? It depends on the distance.
I'm doing that right now. I work in Portland.
I'm sorry?
I said I work in Portland.
Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do you live?
I live in Philadelphia.
So,
See the nitty, right?
mashallah. So when you're in Portland, how long are you in Portland? For months on end. So many of the ulama say if you're in a place longer than 3 days, you yatim salat. Then pray the salah of the people there. When you come back to your home, obviously this is your home, so you don't have to shorten here. Yeah. Any other questions? طيب. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.